June 14th, 1944. 0642 hours. Just outside the village of Saint-Martin-de-Fontenay, Normandy. The morning fog clung low to the wheat fields, muffling sound, swallowing color, and turning the world into a ghostly gray corridor. Inside the cramped steel belly of a British Cromwell tank, Captain Arthur Leyland, commander of C Squadron, 1st Northamptonshire Yeomanry, pressed his gloved hand against the cold interior plating. The tank engine rumbled beneath him like a caged animal trying to shake itself awake. Sweat, oil, and cordite drifted through the air, an aroma every tanker knew too well. Outside, German anti-tank guns waited somewhere in the fog. They always did. But no one could see them. Leyland leaned forward, the leather chin strap of his headset cutting lightly into his jaw. The gunner beside him adjusted the optics again and again, cursing under his breath. The periscope gave nothing but haze. The slit vision blocks might as well have been painted shut. Even you can almost feel it, the suffocating blindness of being sealed in steel, knowing a single shell could rip you apart without warning. "Hold position," Leyland whispered into the intercom, voice steady despite the tension coiled in his spine. Outside, the infantry was pinned. A German POC-40 anti-tank gun had halted the advance, but no one could spot it through the mist and the camouflage netting the Wehrmacht gunners were infamous for. The Cromwell's main gun could silence it, if only they could see it first. Then came the sound. A distant metallic clank. Faint, easy to miss, but Leyland heard it. He always did. He'd spent enough time in armored training grounds to know the difference between farm tools and breech blocks being locked into place. Gunner, bearing unknown. They're out there, close. His crew froze. The loader held his breath. The driver's hands tightened on the controls. Silence. Then another sound, just a flicker, like metal brushing metal. He held it up near the viewing slit, angling it, carefully, precisely, so the fog-softened daylight bounced outward, reflecting into the field ahead. The mirror caught the weak sun, and the beam flickered across the haze. Slowly he moved it, sweeping left to right, watching for the smallest interruption. Then it happened. A glint, just a pinprick of light, bouncing back. But it was enough. "Traverse left, 10 degrees, Leyland ordered sharply. The turret shifted with a mechanical growl, the gun turning toward what looked like empty countryside. The gunner hesitated. There was nothing there to see, but Leyland's voice cut through doubt like a blade. "Enemy in placement. Fire on my command." Outside, the fog swirled. A crow cut across the field. The only other sound was the low breathing of 5 men sealed in steel, waiting. Leyland raised the mirror again, confirming, adjusting, hunting. Another reflection winked through the mist, exactly where he thought it would be. He exhaled. Fire! The Cromwell roared, the recoil slamming through the turret. The shell tore into the unseen distance. For a second, nothing. No movement, no confirmation. Then it came. An eruption of flame, debris, shattered timber, a torn camouflage net billowing upward like a ghost escaping the earth. The POC-40 had been there, exactly there the whole time. And now it was gone. The infantry cheered, the radio crackled with astonished voices. The fog seemed to lift, not from weather, but from fear. But inside the tank, something far more important happened. Leyland stared at the cracked mirror in his hand, realizing what he'd just discovered. A way to see what couldn't be seen. A way to hunt the hunters. A way to turn sunlight into a weapon. The battlefield had just changed.
But before he could share the revelation, another sound echoed across the fields. Distant engine noise, multiple signatures, heavy treads. The kind that didn't belong to British armor. The kind every Allied tanker dreaded. Panthers. And they were closing in. The rumble grew steadily, deeper, heavier, unmistakable. Panzerkampfwagen 5, Panther. Even if you'd never seen one, you could feel it. The vibrations seemed to crawl up through the Cromwell's tracks, through the steel plating, through bone. Captain Arthur Leyland lowered the mirror and pressed his ear to the turret wall, listening the way some men listened for distant thunder. The Panthers were moving in formation, 3, maybe 4, spreading out, using the rolling Norman fields as cover. Classic German armored doctrine. These weren't green crews. These were veterans. Hunters. "Driver, reverse 10 yards. Keep the hull low behind the embankment," Leyland ordered. The Cromwell eased back, treads grinding softly into the wet soil. The fog still clung to the landscape, but now it felt different, charged, electric, waiting to erupt. The gunner swallowed hard. "We can't take Panthers head-on, sir." He wasn't wrong. Everyone inside the tank knew it. Panthers outgunned them, outranged them, and their sloped armor made Allied shells scream off harmlessly, unless striking at perfect angles. But Leyland didn't flinch. "We don't need to face them head-on," he said. "We just need to see them first." The crew exchanged quick, nervous glances, the kind shared between men who trusted their commander, but feared for their lives. Outside, the infantry pulled back into cover. Radio chatter filled with warnings, bearings, conflicting reports. The fog distorted everything, turning estimates into guesswork. But Leyland wasn't guessing. He raised the cracked shaving mirror again, angling it toward the gray void beyond the embankment. The reflected light skimmed the mist, slicing gently through it, searching for interruptions, edges, shadows, anything that pushed back against the beam. Seconds passed. Then, there, a faint silhouette, a shape too angular to be natural, a turret, broad, predatory. "Panther, bearing 84. Gunner, prepare AP."
The loader rammed the armor-piercing shell into the breach, the metallic clank echoing like a countdown. But then, another glint. To the right, higher ground. A second Panther, repositioning to flank. Leland's mind raced. If they fired now, they'd give away their position. The first Panther would turn its 75mm high-velocity gun and tear them open. The second would sweep their retreat path. A trap. "Hold fire," he said, voice low but iron steady. The crew tensed. Holding fire while staring down Panthers went against every survival instinct a tanker had. The fog swirled again. The loader rammed the armor-piercing shell into the breach, the metallic clank echoing like a countdown. But then, another glint. To the right, higher ground. A second Panther, repositioning to flank. Leland's mind raced. If they fired now, they'd give away their position. The first Panther would turn its 75mm high-velocity gun and tear them open. The second would sweep their retreat path. A trap. "Hold fire," he said, voice low but iron steady. The crew tensed. Holding fire while staring down Panthers went against every survival instinct a tanker had. The fog swirled again, thicker for a moment, then thinning just enough for the mirror to catch the faintest reflection off the commander's cupola of the flanking Panther. Leland's pulse quickened. "Driver, pivot right 10 degrees. Gunner, adjust elevation. We take the flanker first. When he crests, his lower hull will be exposed." The gunner nodded, sweat beading at his brow despite the cold. The turret shifted with slow, deliberate precision. The battlefield held its breath. In the distance, the Panther's engine growled louder as it pushed up the incline. Confident, unaware, certain of its advantage, its silhouette rose through the fog like a great iron beast emerging from water. Leland raised the mirror one last time, confirming angle, timing, exposure. The reflection struck the Panther's glasses plate, bouncing back like a tiny signal. A heartbeat later, fire! The Cromwell thundered. The shell streaked into the mist, then slammed into the Panther's lower hull, exactly where Leland predicted. A burst of flame erupted beneath it, ammunition cooking off, turret lifting an inch before slamming sideways. The beast collapsed, burning, its death masked by fog, but undeniable. The crew gasped, not in celebration, but in shock. They had killed a Panther. With positioning, with timing, with a mirror. But there was no time to savor it. The first Panther had heard the shot. Its turret was turning slow but relentless towards the muzzle flash. They couldn't hide. Driver, full speed, smoke, now! The Cromwell lurched forward as the driver slammed the controls. Smoke grenades discharged, billowing a thick white barrier. The Panther fired. The shell screamed past, so close that it rattled the hull like an earthquake. The Cromwell slid behind the hedgerow, branches scraping against steel, mud splattering across the viewing slit. The crew steadied themselves, hearts pounding in unison. The radio crackled again. A voice, strained, breathless. Enemy armor advancing from the orchard, multiple contacts. We need armor support immediately. Leland gripped the mirror, knuckles white. The tactic worked once. But now the battlefield was shifting fast, and more German armor was pushing in. The crew looked to him, not for orders, but for certainty. And Leland realized something. This mirror wasn't just a tool. It was becoming a method, a way to fight blindness, a way to survive. He lifted his head, listening again, not to engines this time, but to the wind, the spacing of distant treads, the rhythm of battlefield movement. There were more Panthers out there, and soon, very soon, there would be tigers. The fog began to break, sunlight piercing through in fractured beams. The fog fractured into ribbons as the first true rays of morning light cut across the French hedgerows. Dust motes drifted in the beams like drifting ash. Captain Arthur Leland steadied himself inside the Cromwell, the engine humming beneath him like a restless heartbeat. His crew waited, breaths shallow, nerves frayed but held together by the thin thread of his certainty. The radio burst again with urgency. German armor pushing through the orchard. Markings confirm Panzer Regiment 22. Repeat, Panthers and support vehicles advancing. Panzer Regiment 22. Veterans of the Eastern Front. Men who had fought T-34s in blizzards and lived. Leland lowered his head, thinking fast. The mirror glinted faintly in his hand, cracked but intact, fragile, yet suddenly indispensable. He raised it again, angling it toward the orchard beyond the hedgerow. The reflected sunlight danced through the branches, catching flecks of movement, helmet rims, antennae tips, the faint curvature of a mantlet. The infantry had no idea how close the armor was, how fast it was approaching. "Radio to command," Leland said calmly. "Panthers advancing in staggered wedge formation. Infantry screened. Anti-tank teams concealed behind second line. They're preparing a push." The radio operator blinked. "How do you know, sir?" Leland only lifted the mirror slightly, the answer gleaming in silence.
Outside, the orchard rustled, then roared alive. Panthers surged forward, engines revving, tracks churning up earth. The infantry scattered back behind stone walls and root-shattered trees. Machine gun fire erupted, tracer lines stitching the air. The Cromwell rolled forward, not toward the Panthers, but along a hedge line, silent, stalking, positioning. Leland's voice cut through the intercom like a scalpel. "Driver, slow advance. Gunner, stay low. Loader, HE ready, on my mark." The crew obeyed, no hesitation now, not after what they'd witnessed. The mirror had become their new set of eyes. As they crept along the hedge, Leland used the mirror to search for something more dangerous than the tanks. The spotters, the rangefinders, the men who fed targeting data to the Panthers. And there, just beyond a broken stone fence, he saw motion, a flicker of binocular lenses catching the reflected beam. "Gunner, bearing 130, spotter team behind the wall, HE, fire." The Cromwell's shell slammed into the position, stone erupting outward in a hail of dust and sharp fragments. The Panthers hesitated, momentarily blinded, unable to confirm their aim. The battlefield shifted, just a little, but enough. "You just blinded their guns," the radio operator whispered, "but it wasn't enough to stop them."
One Panther broke formation and surged ahead, angling to encircle the British infantry. Its turret swung, machine gun chattering, bullets ripping through hedges and dirt. Soldiers dove for cover. A sergeant screamed for smoke. Someone prayed. Leland reacted instantly. "Driver, hard left! We intercept!" The Cromwell burst through the hedgerow, branches snapping, mud spraying. The sudden movement stunned the Panther crew. British armor wasn't supposed to charge like that. Not toward them. Not ever. But Leland wasn't charging the tank. He was charging the sunlight. He angled the Cromwell so the rising sun aligned perfectly with his mirror. Then he held it high, tilting it through the open commander's hatch. The beam flashed across the battlefield, bright, sharp, deliberate, striking the Panther's optics dead on. The Panther halted, blinded, unable to aim. "AP, fire!" The Cromwell's shell screamed out, striking the Panther's turret ring. Sparks burst, armor cracked. The turret jammed halfway through its turn, frozen like a beast with a broken neck. The battlefield exploded with cheers. But victory was brief. A new sound, deeper, heavier, slower, rolled across the field like distant thunder. Every tanker knew that note. Every Allied crew feared it. Tiger. Tiger 1. 88mm gun. Front armor like a fortress. The infantry fell silent. The radio choked into static. Even the air seemed to stop moving. Leland turned slowly, raising the mirror again. His hand did not shake, but the crew could see their own reflections trembling in the polished shard of glass. The sunlight caught, bounced, and revealed that the Tiger was not alone. Behind it, half-tracks. To its right, engineers. And worst of all, an artillery observer team setting up a signal lamp. They weren't pushing through blindly. They were coordinating a strike. And if that lamp flashed, if artillery coordinates were sent, this entire sector would be obliterated. Leland lowered the mirror, jaw tightening. They couldn't run. They couldn't hide. They couldn't outgun a tiger. But they could outthink it.
He looked at the mirror again. This fragile, cracked relic of 100 mornings and 1,000 close shaves. The crew watched him, waiting for orders that meant life or death. "Driver," Leland said quietly, "take us toward the sun." The crew stared. Toward the sun? Why? Then they understood. The sun would blind the tiger before the mirror even came into play. And if the tiger couldn't see, its armor meant nothing. The Cromwell lurched forward, accelerating, engine roaring with newfound fury. The tiger turret began to turn toward them, slow but unstoppable. The crew braced. Leland raised the mirror. The sunlight ignited on its surface like a captured star. The tiger's optics flashed. The gun barrel hesitated. And in that frozen heartbeat, something happened on the ridge behind them. A shadow. A shape. Another tank. But whose?
The shadow on the ridge sharpened as the sun climbed higher, steel, angular, unmistakably armored. The crew inside the Cromwell held their breath as the silhouette resolved into a tank profile. The turret, the mantlet, the barrel pointed down into the valley where Leland's tank and the tiger faced each other like duelists at dawn. The loader whispered, "Sir, is that one of ours?" No markings visible, no radio call announcing support, no engine note familiar enough to bring relief. The tiger was still blinded, turret froze in mid-turn, its optics flashing with stolen sunlight. But that paralysis wouldn't last long. Its commander would switch to backup sights, its gunner would adjust, its 88 would find them. The battlefield seemed suspended between heartbeats. Leland angled the mirror again, using the beam not to search this time, but to signal. A flicker, a pulse, a pattern only another trained tanker would recognize. 3 flashes, pause. 2 more, friendly recognition code. The tank on the ridge reacted, turret shifting, angling not toward the Cromwell, but toward the tiger. Then the radio crackled alive. "This is Lieutenant Harrow, Sherwood Rangers. We see you. Hold position. We've got the shot." Relief washed through the Cromwell like a warm gust through an open door. But Leland didn't relax. "No," he replied sharply. "Negative. Tiger has artillery spotters. They fire first, we all die. We take them out before the tiger." A pause. A breath. Then Harrow's voice returned, grim but trusting. "Understood. Your lead." Leland raised the mirror toward the ridge, angling it like a conductor raising a baton. The beam danced across the orchard, searching, until it caught the glint of the signal lamp beside the artillery observers. 2 men crouched beside it, preparing to flash coordinates. One held a map board, the other lifted the shutter. "There," Leland murmured. "Gunner, bearing 240. Harrow, on my mark, fire 30 meters above our round." The Cromwell fired first, HE shell bursting against the rubble pile just below the observers. Dust exploded upward, swallowing them, throwing off their aim. Then Harrow's Sherman Firefly fired. The round streaked overhead, then detonated in a brilliant blossom of flame and shattered earth. The signal lamp flew skyward in pieces, the observers disappearing beneath the blast. The threat of artillery evaporated in an instant. But the tiger was recovering. Its turret moved again, slow, heavy, implacable. The crew inside the Cromwell could almost feel the gunner settling into his backup optic, lining up a shot that no smoke, no speed, no prayer could outrun. Leland didn't look at the tiger.
He looked at the sun. "Driver, 10 meters forward. Gunner, hold. Harrow, prepare to fire when I call it." The Cromwell crawled forward, positioning itself so the sunlight poured directly across its glasses plate. Leland raised the mirror once more, tilting it until the beam struck the tiger's optics dead center, burning bright as a welder's spark. The tiger hesitated again, just a fraction of a second, but a fraction was enough. "Now!" Leland shouted. Harrow fired. The Firefly's 17-pounder AP shell screamed across the ridge like a thrown spear. It struck the tiger just below the mantlet, one of the few weak points in its armor. The explosion ripped outward, turret slamming sideways, smoke billowing from the commander's hatch. The tiger was not dead, but it was wounded. Inside the Cromwell, adrenaline surged. The loader rammed another round home. The driver gripped the controls, ready to surge or retreat. The gunner steadied his aim, waiting for the command. Then the battlefield shifted, again. From the southern hedgerow came movement, not armor this time, but infantry. German grenadiers advancing fast, armed with Panzerfausts, shoulder-fired tank killers that could gut a Cromwell at close range. The mirror couldn't stop them. The sun couldn't blind them. The armor couldn't withstand them. For the first time, the crew felt true fear. Leland didn't. He looked not at the grenadiers, but past them, toward the distant tree line where a British infantry platoon was pinned, unaware of the approaching threat. He knew what would happen if the grenadiers reached them. He knew what would happen if the Cromwell fell back. He knew what would happen if they stayed still. So he made the only choice that kept others alive. "Driver," he said quietly, "we're going straight through them." The crew stared. Through infantry with anti-tank weapons? Through men who could kill them with a single shot? Through the narrow gap between a wounded tiger and the burning Panther? "Yes," Leland said. "Full speed." The Cromwell roared forward. Engines screaming, treads tearing up earth, charging into the teeth of the enemy. The grenadiers turned, Panzerfausts lifting. And then, from the smoke behind them, another engine ignited. Not German. British. Another tank was coming. But this time, it wasn't a silhouette. It was a name Leland knew. A commander he thought was dead. A tank he never expected to see again.